I've just assembled one bicycle, a Captain Galacticon, and a dollhouse. I've got a headache this big, but I took 2 Excedrin. That's all it'll take.
I need a moment in my day.
Yes, sir. I've got a Tuesday to
Make myself ready.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Nothing's like being invisible, and nothing's better for seeing the forest for the trees than the good to the last drop feeling of Maxwell House, only Maxwell House. That's the good to the last drop feeling of Maxwell House and me.
At 16 Bedford Street, the toast is with fine crystal. On Astor Lane, a powerful telescope probes the night sky. And over on Shore Road, a new TV is entertaining the Kagans. All these things were bought with Visa Gold, which protects them against loss, theft, damage, and doubles the manufacturer's warranty. And with Visa Gold, you can get this protection at nearly 3 times as many places as American Express. Visa Gold. It's everywhere you want to be.
After you've produced the yearly report in record time, after you've made order out of paperwork chaos, after you've turned the slideshow into a colorful part of your winning proposal, and seen productivity become top priority, maybe after all that you'll know why Canon is the most popular copier in America. From personal to color laser copying, the choice is Canon. Call toll-free 1-800-OK-CANON.
No more headache. 2 Excedrin. That's all it took.
When you want extra strength headache relief, take Excedrin, the headache medicine.
It's Sunday morning on CBS, and here again is Charles Kuralt.
And we are joined now by State Department correspondent Wyatt Andrews in Washington and by Bob Simon in Jerusalem. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Wyatt, for I don't know how many years now, more than 10, the United States had a firm policy of not talking to the PLO. Suddenly, Yasser Arafat says a few words at a news conference, and we're talking to the PLO. How can this be?
Charles, basically because we said, the United States said, if he said the magic words, we would talk to him. On that level, as you point out, it's simply a matter of public policy. For 13 years, the U.S. said if he recognized Israel, if he renounced terrorism, if he said the magic words over the 2 key UN resolutions on the Middle East peace process, that we would talk to the PLO. Keep in mind that 13 years ago, Henry Kissinger said that we wouldn't negotiate with the PLO until Arafat or the PLO said something like that. So on that level, it was just a response, at least the State Department says, to live up to what the U.S. said it would do.
Has all the trouble over there, the uprising on the West Bank, had anything to do with this change?
Well, of course it has, Charles. I mean, on the other level, the U.S. Doesn't want to admit this, or at least say it publicly, but this is a major change in American foreign policy. And if you will, it is Schultz's Christmas card to Yitzhak Shamir. Shamir has spent much of this year saying no to Schultz's peace initiatives, and Schultz has been telling Shamir that he thought Shamir's policy of inflexibility toward the PLO was entirely too inflexible. The Israelis do not want to sit down with Yasser Arafat on the grounds that he is a terrorist, they say. Schultz says that also. But also, at the same time, systematically, Israel suppresses those voices in the occupied territories from the Palestinians that could conceivably rise up to replace Arafat. Schultz has told him it's inflexible, and now he has acted on that. He has given, whether Shamir likes it or not, a policy to which Shamir must react.
Well, you want to react to that, Bob?
Prime Minister Shamir reacted yesterday. It was his first official reaction. He said that it's putting the alliance with the United States to the test. In fact, it's also putting Israel to the test. The Israelis, as uncomfortable as they are with the situation in the West Bank and Gaza, are used to it. It's been going on for some time. This level of violence has been going on for a year now, and while uncomfortable, it's livable. Peace is the real test for Israel. Peace talks, because it raises the questions which divide this nation fundamentally. And the minute the Americans begin talking to the PLO, Israelis flock to both sides of the spectrum. And they are. We can't talk to the PLO, which means we can't accommodate a Palestinian state, basically, because this is what the PLO stands for. And the other side of the spectrum here, which is we must talk to the PLO because the current situation is intolerable and it's only getting worse. Now, while Prime Minister Shamir continues to reject the PLO, more and more people on the leftist side of the Israeli body politic are coming out every day now and saying, well, here it is, we've got to do it, we really don't have any choice. Former Defense Minister Ezra Weitzman reacted this way immediately. Some more members of the Labor Party are doing so today. And tonight, it looks like Prime Minister Shamir is going to be forming a government which will be a narrow, right-wing government without the Labor Party. It's not the final word. This could still change, but that's the way it's leaning right now.
Bob, I don't know the situation there at all, and you do, but it occurs to me that there must be some relief in even the hardline circles in Israel to have some of the responsibility for this terrible situation taken away, shouldered by the United States.
I don't think there's any relief in the right-wing circles, Charles, except if it's the sort of relief that says, well, the whole world's against us, the whole world has always been against us, and the kind of satisfaction that some people can find in that feeling. Other than that, no. They know that there's going to be a lot of pressure now for negotiations. There'll be a lot of pressure for Israel to shrink from the greater Israel that it's been since 1967 to a much smaller country. And right-wing circles, which are so committed to the concept of the greater Israel, feel no relief at that. Left-wing circles, indeed, have been saying for some time that the Americans have got to come over and hit us over the head and force us to do something because we are incapable of doing it ourselves. So there is that kind of relief today.
Is that really the American intention? Is that a fair statement of it, Wyatt?
I think so. In this sense, the United States is always very careful not to publicly say that it wants to pressure Israel. But as I said before, that's what Schultz has done. They don't want to admit that they've anointed Yasser Arafat, but let's say it flat out. That's what they have done. Israel has consistently over these years said that there was no place for the PLO at peace talks. There's no way around it now. By the United States giving this anointment, if you will, to Yasser Arafat, even they say, oh, it's not negotiations, not to worry, Mr. Prime Minister, these are just talks. That's not exactly right. They have virtually guaranteed, especially if the PLO stays away from terrorism, and that's an issue we ought to raise here, if the PLO does that, there's almost no way around recognizing Yasser Arafat as the leader of the Palestinians, as the leader who needs to sit at these peace talks with Israel. And I think the sea change here is that. Remember that George Shultz, Charles, George Shultz is probably, you could argue that he is the most pro-Israel Secretary of State in history. That's a double blow to Israel. This is Richard Nixon goes to China. It is Schultz who has talked to the PLO, and that they also have to recognize.
We have 30 seconds left. Does either of you think there's the slightest chance that any of us will live to see the day of Israel giving up Gaza and the West Bank and living at peace with a Palestinian state?
I think if we're lucky and live long enough, Charles, I think it's conceivable.
And I would just echo that if things are going to happen in a peaceful manner, this seems to be the process that has to get the Middle East in that direction.
Thank you both.
I don't know.
What's missing in these new special request soups from Campbell's?
I don't know.
Want to guess?
I don't know.
About a third of the salt.
That's what Campbell's soups are. Good.
The Christmas cards of Hallmark. Traditional cards. And religious cards. Simple cards. Fancy cards. Even funny cards. Cards that say things just the way you want to say them. Cards that show how much you really care about your family and your friends. The most ways and the very best ways to express your feelings at Christmas, only at Hallmark, where there's more to Christmas than ever before.
It's a Radio Shack Merry Christmas. News sure spread fast about the Radio Shack electronic games we gave Bobby for Christmas.
They're great fun. You need a good offense to score on the Pro Action football game.
Raceway has 2 skill levels to challenge your run for the checkered flag.
And LCD Fireaway's directional shooting lets you blast alien invaders.
We knew the kids would love them.
But we didn't realize they'd be this popular.
Fun at your fingertips. Electronic games from $7.95 to $29.95. Only at Radio Shack.
As the company that gave the world the first full line of four-wheel drive cars, Subaru's performance on hills is well known. What may not be so well known is that of all the Subarus registered since 1978, an astonishing 92% are still on the road, which could mean a Subaru will still be good on a hill when other cars are over it.
A Book of Sorrows, now reported by Bob Pierpoint. We've already seen several transformations this morning of paper into something more than paper, of paint into something more than paint. In this transformation, rolls of film become pictures in a book of sorrows. More than that, they become something very like an indictment.
The homeless on our streets and in our parks have become such a common sight that often we no longer see them. But Stephanie Holloman captures these displaced men, women, and children with her camera and forces us to look. She shows us that too many Americans, through no fault of their own, are falling through the safety nets of our society.
But I was interested in the whole issue of housing, affordable housing for Americans. And it's a disgrace in this nation that people are sleeping on streets in tents. The kids are in LA's tent city, living alongside crack dealers. I mean that mothers have to sleep in alleyways with kids. It doesn't, or in shelters where somebody might be bothering the kids. So I was interested in photographing people that really brought to the front this whole issue of affordable housing.
There are more homeless in America today than at any time since the Great Depression, and more than a third of them are families with children. Nearly 1/4 of the homeless have jobs but cannot afford a place to live.
I kept saying, what's going on here? What's going on? I just was stunned by the conditions that people were forced to live in this country of ours at that time and now today. And it seemed to me the greatest disgrace was that people didn't know about it at that time. The displaced homeless in New York in the welfare hotels, and as I started out the project. Audrey was living in a tiny little room with 2 kids, 2 bunk beds. Her sink was falling off the wall. The city was paying $1,800 a month for this room. And, you know, she couldn't have a hot plate in there because of fire code. So she cooked sandwiches. She had a hot plate that she'd hide. She'd have to burn incense at mealtime.
After her original experience with the homeless in New York City, Stephanie Holloman decided to study the problem across the country, camera in hand.
I just got in a car and just drove 12,000 miles, finding people wherever I could find them, the homeless, around the United States, trying to show as much as possible how geography affects the nature of homelessness in the country, how the problems are not just, as the popular perception, a big inner city problem, that it's rural, it's all sorts of people. It reflects the problems of the country's economy.
In Southwest Virginia, the photographer met Thelma Marie, who was living in a bus.
Thelma's really one of the original people that I photographed in Big Stone Gap, Appalachia. So I was nosing around, I saw this bus, and I drove by it. And there are a lot of buses, as you know, in rural America, parked by the side of the road. And I saw a chimney coming out of it. And I thought, So I drove up.
How involved did you get personally with the people that you photographed along the way of your trip?
Too involved sometimes. I mean, I couldn't show it, of course. You know, I think nothing is worse than to photograph people with pity. I think pity is a horrible emotion to have. It's patronizing. It treats people with total lack of respect. So I didn't have pity. I hope I had empathy.
An estimated 30% of America's homeless are war veterans. In Washington, Stephanie Holloman met some of these homeless at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial.
Oh my gosh.
Hey, Richard. I want to see your picture in here. Here.
How are you?
You can find Stephanie. Okay. How you doing, brother? This is Stephanie. This is for
just
you.
waking up?
If you need.
I'll get you. Oh, great.
You know, I'll show you some of the stuff.
Anybody there you recognize?
Mm-hmm. I know the me right there.
Yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
The newly formed leadership. I found a tremendous amount of comfort from the homeless, because I was really lonely on this last leg of the trip. I mean, it was exhausting. And believe it or not, you know, the homeless were the people sometimes who comforted me. You know, people like Dee.
Now, you pulled the pickup in here, and this is where you...
Yeah, we're back up in here and crawling back of the camper and go to sleep. We had a little foam rubber mattress that we had in the back. It's kind of cramped.
Dee Gonzalez operated her own dog grooming business and lived in this mobile home with her son, Tony. Then the oil industry in the Southwest collapsed, and she went broke.
Really, I think the homeless tend to stick to themselves. It's a stigma of sorts. You know, nobody likes to admit their failure. They can't even afford a home. And you become rather untrusting of people and just depend on yourself. Besides, you're concentrating so hard on trying to survive that you don't have time to socialize. It takes every waking minute to even figure out, how am I going to live? How am I going to eat today? Where am I going to go to get warm or to get cool? What am I going to do?
I guess the worst thing for me in doing this book that got to me is the kids and their eyes. And I always photograph for eyes. I always look at the eyes, and that's what I'm working for. And you see hope in the kids, and till about 3, 4, you know, the way kids' eyes are bright. And then you start to see, they see what they're going through, they know.
taking home whole wheat total?
Special K.
Hope you're hungry, because you'll need almost 3 boxes of Special K to equal the vitamin and mineral nutrition in just 1 box of total.
I've got Nutri-Grain.
You'll need 4 boxes. And you?
Just shredded wheat.
12 boxes. Total, 1 bowl, 100%. No other cereal has more vitamin and mineral nutrition. Next time, pick up Total. If it's whole wheat Total, it's Total Nutrition. That'll be a charge.
We interrupt this purchase for a reminder.
Don't forget, Santa.
'Tis the season to be choosy.
That's it.
So choose the card that actually pays you cash back for every charge. The Discover card.
That's a great idea. You sure know how to pick them.
It pays to Discover, the card that pays you back.
A few words from Dave Brubeck on the Oldsmobile 98 Regency. And what does the new generation of Brubecks have to say about it? It's a remarkable fusion of traditional elegance and modern performance, and all that jazz.
This is the new generation of Olds.
Hello? Need a shipping date? Yeah. Oh, hold on a second. Hello? You want research? Yo, price change?
The IBM Personal System 2
Research, yeah. All trends are up.
runs today's most popular business program
Shipping. Be out in 10 days.
with superior graphics and speed.
The price on that? The price is $89.99.
No wonder it's today's fastest-selling computer, the Personal System 2 family from IBM.
I'll look at the mail now. This is the best time of year for mail. Thank you for your Christmas cards and all your warm greetings of the season. The mail has some other thoughts we can share on the subject of the earthquake in Armenia, to which we devoted our cover story last week. Charles W. Sprague of New Orleans, who is a geologist, says, I am reminded of something that the philosopher and historian Will Durant once said. Civilization exists by geological consent, subject to change without notice. We've all just been witness to the truth of those words. While we're on the subject of words, many of you were struck by the writing and the reading aloud of Gary Paulson, the author of books for young people on whom we reported a couple of weeks ago. This letter comes from Mrs. Goldie Lieberman of Bluebell, Pennsylvania. She says she's a teacher, and she says Gary Paulson's work gives her children the opportunity to listen to the melody of words, to listen to the sounds of timber crashing or the crunch of snow beneath the hard steel blades of a dog sled. Mrs. Lieberman says nothing is quite so powerful as the written word. This letter is from Marianka May of Pine Bush, New York. She says that she wants to thank both Bill Geist and Eugenia Zuckerman. She refers first to Bill Geist's report on that kind gentleman named Greenberg, who's been giving away gloves to the needy for so many years now. She says, I found Greenberg's glove compartment deeply moving in its simplicity. And then she goes on to say that Eugenia Zuckerman deserves her deepest gratitude, too, for bringing her the pianist Rudolf Verkushny again. She says, I have not seen this wonderful gentleman since I was a teenager in pre-war Czechoslovakia, where I was fortunate enough to hear him play at a concert in the Rudolfinum, the parliament in Prague. Finally, a letter from the high seas. Well, not the high seas exactly. It's from a marina in Mobile, Alabama. It's from Donald and Robin Lee Rose, formerly of Dublin, Ohio, who, they say, gave up a law practice and a nursing career and gave up mowing lawns and gave up trimming hedges and set out to see the world on their small sailboat. They say they watched Sunday morning at sea, and the reception isn't always very good. In Mobile, the Roses were able to plug into a dockside cable and see Sunday morning clearly for a change. They say they just wanted to say hi. Hi. And smooth seas and fair winds to the Roses. Our address is Sunday Morning, 524 West 57th Street, Box K, New York, New York, 10019. We leave you this morning in dark December, 3 days before the winter solstice, on a stretch of warm sand on the Hawaiian island of Maui, where in a gentle way, the surf is up. And so is a crab. Up and out and scuttling along, carrying its eyes aloft on stalks, which is not surprising, really. What sunbather wouldn't strain a little to take in such a view as this? I'm Charles Kuralt. I hope you'll join us here again next Sunday morning.
It's Office Value Days, the biggest sale of the year on all your office supply needs, only from McQuitty Office Supplies. Nothing writes as smooth as a Uniball from Faber-Castell. Office Value Day priced at just 66 cents each. Or how about this Permafile storage box from Perma for a low $4.68. Office Value Days, only at McQuitty Office Supplies, First American Center downtown and in Brentwood.
Excitement is building at Davis Kid Booksellers in Green Hills. Look for the clock tower on Hillsborough Road. Davis Kid Booksellers, adventures for the mind.